Hey everyone, Nick here, and in this video I'm going to be covering advanced web scraping. Now I've had dozens of people over the course of the last few weeks ask me, Nick, how do I scrape this resource, or how do I scrape LinkedIn, or what do I do if I need Instagram posts? And in this video I'm going to show you how to scrape the previously unscrapable using a very simple third-party tool called Apify. I'm not sponsored by Apify at all, but I really love their tool, and I find myself using it on basically any type of web scraping project nowadays. So I'm going to run you through it from top to bottom, and then I'm actually going to go out and use Apify along with make.com to build out a very simple parasite SEO or parasite social media tool in about 5 minutes. So if that sounds like something you guys want to learn more about, if you guys have always wondered what sort of rests in the highest echelons of advanced web scraping, then this is the video for you. Let's get into it. Okay, so first things first, what is Apify? Apify is essentially just like a big library, which is now turned into a store, of scrapers that other people have built with an interface that lets you just plug that scraper in to whatever flow you want in seconds. It's probably one of the most cost-effective scraping platforms out there, and it's really evolved into like an ecosystem just for web scraping in general, where you can like create your own scraper and then you can actually put it up online and sell it, or sell access to it, I should say, for a certain type of recurring monthly revenue. I've considered building my own web scrapers here. I know a few people that have done so quite successfully. I made a fair amount of money. And what I find so surprising is that there's so many people out there that don't really know about this. And if you don't know about it, then so much of the web is unfortunately inaccessible to you. So over the course of the next couple of minutes, I'm just going to go through Apify from top to bottom. I'm not going to, like, this video isn't a programming video. I'm not going to be running you through any programming principles or programming fundamentals. Obviously, if you want to build a reliable web scraper fast, you are probably going to need some programming skills. But in this video, I'm just going to be using pre-created scrapers, and there are a ton of them, by the way. It's not limiting whatsoever to use pre-created scrapers because there's like 10,000 of them or whatever, to scrape data sources. And I'll just show you some examples of how you can use it in your flow. I'll show you how to connect to make.com for the aspiring automation engineers out there. And then at the end, I'm going to take one of these scrapers and then use it to build out like a Twitter parasite social media campaign. Okay, let's dive right into it. First and foremost, the way that Apify works is, if I click sign up for free and I go through that whole rigmarole, I'm going to be taken to a page that looks something like this. This is the back end of Apify, and there are a couple things to keep in mind. Number one, the way that you are billed on Apify is through usage. They offer $5 of free usage per month to any user that signs up on their free plan. I also think that they have like some pretty generous trial, although I might be mistaken there. But the $5 of free usage is more than enough for you, one, to probably like use a lot of the scrapers that you'd want to use to get all the data that you'd want to get. But two, to like test everything out, before you actually go ahead and make a purchase of some kind. You're given a certain amount of memory, and all this really means is that, in order for the web scraper to work, it's essentially a server somewhere hosted on the cloud, and you have a certain allocation of how much memory of that server cloud that you can use at any given one point in time. On the free plan, it's 8 gigabytes. You can upgrade your plan if you would like and go substantially higher. If I go to pricing here, you'll see that you're given like a certain number of monthly compute units. You're given a certain number of like data set reads or data set writes, right? This stuff is a little bit more advanced. So if I just go to the pricing page here, then essentially you'll see that, if you got on the $49 a month plan, for instance, then you would get 32 gigabytes of RAM for your actors, which are their terms for servers. You'd be able to run 32 things concurrently. You'd have access to, proxies and all that fun stuff. And, I personally subscribe to the starter plan, and it's more than enough for literally all of my projects. And I probably have like over 10 projects running constantly on Apify. So it's like $5 a project. Consider the average client for automation anyway might be paying, $500, $1,000, $2,000 a month for maintenance or some type of retainer. You could see why, mathematically Apify works out as a solution here. But anyway, that's just the logistics. In terms of how to actually go ahead and use Apify, if you don't have any programming experience, the simplest and most straightforward way is to head over to this store. So give that a click and you'll be confronted with a page that looks like this. Essentially what the store is it's just an ecosystem of other scrapers that developers have created to do things that most people want to do. And so if I go to all actors and then I click view all, let's just take a look at some of the potential here of what you can do. There's like a Google Maps scraper over here, Google search results scraper, Instagram hashtag scraper, website content crawler, Facebook post scraper, Twitter scraper, TikTok data extractor, contact detail scraper, GPT scraper, Amazon product scraper, AI product matcher, Airbnb scraper, YouTube scraper, Cheerio scraper, Zillow search scraper, TripAdvisor scraper. Obviously, the options are virtually unlimited here. And that's why I mentioned earlier that like you don't actually need to have programming experience to use Apify and make a ton of money when you integrate it with Make.com, because most of the heavy lifting has actually already been done for you by these developers, like Quacker, for instance. But okay, I don't just want to show you this. I actually want to dive in and illustrate how simple it is to use. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to Twitter Scraper over here. And I got one of my buddies' Twitter pages over here. This guy's named Matt Larson, very intelligent fella. A lot of my followers, I think, have heard of him. He's in the agency space. Feel free to give him a follow if you'd like. But essentially what I'm going to do is I'm going to plug his profile into this Twitter scraper, and then we're just going to get a bunch of search results from it. So I'm going to click start, and let's see what happens. As you'll see, this is just so incredibly easy. The fields a lot of the time are literally just, hey, put in a Twitter URL. And you can imagine how, using make.com, maybe you can consult like a Google Sheet with a list of Twitter URLs, take every one of those Twitter URLs, and then just pump this into the actor. What Apify is doing right now behind the scenes is actually going out, setting up a cloud server with a script, and that script is basically meant to go onto Twitter, extract posts, headings, extract post data like date, time, copy, all that stuff. And then what it's doing is it's actually just making that publicly available to us here. Now I set my scraper at 100 tweets, but if so it looks like it all, it just scraped the hell out of it. If we look at it now, we'll see that there are literally 100 tweets, 50 per page, and there are 2 pages, including like the full text, including the number of replies, including the retweets, the favorites, the views, even the URL, which is fantastic. So there's just so much that we could do with this. I mentioned how later on what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a little repurposing or parasite social media tool that basically takes every one of these tweets and then just rewrites them using AI, maybe adds them to like a content calendar or something. But these sorts of flows are so incredibly easy to use with Apify. All you need to do is just hook it up to make.com with like a one-click module, which I'll show you in a moment. So pretty neat, huh? You even get the images as well. Not that, I think that it's super relevant, but yeah, you get a lot. So that's just the Twitter scraper. If we go back to the store here, there are way more. Like there's an Instagram hashtag scraper, for instance. I received probably 3 questions the last couple of weeks about scraping Instagram. So, all you need to do in order for this to work is obviously just pump in a hashtag. The default here is just web scraping. You can scrape a certain number of posts per hashtag. Let's just say I want to scrape 10, just to make this a little bit faster. You have some run options and all that stuff, but generally speaking, I don't really ever use any of the advanced ones. Usually there's an actor that does exactly what I want, which is so simple. And so I don't really have to muck around in the back end or the code or anything. And then, this is now, again, spinning up a server. The server has a script, and that script is like maybe not log into Instagram, but scrape Instagram for posts that include this hashtag. It's going to get like the post URL. It's going to get like the number of comments. It's going to get the first comment. It's just going to get a bunch of data for us, which is pretty interesting. And, you can even get like the author. And if you guys are super, if you guys pay close attention to a lot of the other stuff I talk about in my videos, you'll see that there are tons of other tools out there that allow you to get, let's say, like an Instagram author and then use it to scrape their posts. So what we can do is we can weave in 3 or 4 of these like pre-built scrapers together super easily. Maybe Apify is in the front end, which scrapes hashtags and then compiles a list of users. And then Phantom Buster takes in a list of users and then gets their posts. And then you feed in those post images to AI to tell you something about it. And then what your next step is I don't know, you pre-draft a DM or something like that and send it directly to the person. The options here are virtually unlimited. But this is just a quick example of the Instagram scraper. Let's check out another one that I find myself using quite often. I used this YouTube one in a previous video, which was super useful. I have a lot of people asking me for job post scrapers. And so one thing I'm going to do sometime over the course of the next couple of weeks is I'm going to show you how to basically apply to jobs automatically, or if not apply to jobs automatically, then like template out your job post and CV and cover letter. So it's 99% of the way there. But let's say, I want to scrape a job listing website, Indeed, the largest job scraping website in the world. And maybe I'm like looking for jobs. Maybe I'm looking for web developer, web scraper jobs. This is a very quick and easy way to do so. All you need to do is, put the location down. So maybe I'm in Seattle. I'm searching in the United States. I only want 20 jobs for right now. And then I just click save and start. Again, within probably 30 seconds to a minute, this is going to go out there onto Indeed and then scrape the data and then put it and transform it into JSON, essentially like a completely platform agnostic format that we can like plug into Make, we can plug into like any other scraper on the planet. And in this way, we can make like these very complex chains of scraping that enable us to do super cool things. So I love Apify to death. I've showed it to tons of other people in the Make.com, Zapier, and automation space. And one thing that they always say to me is like, oh man, like I wish I could use this, but I don't know how to program. I feel like there's just I don't know if it's like a connotation or some type of like cultural meme where people that try and use Apify are maybe put off by the way that it's sort of pitched to developers, but you really don't need to be a developer to use it. As you see, I just got a bunch of Indeed job posts with job titles and a bunch of information basically from these companies. And I didn't have to really do anything, right? All I did was I plugged in like 3 parameters: the place that I want to search in, the job post that I want to search in, the city. And then it just pulled me up a bunch of data that I could use, obviously, to do some pretty cool stuff with. So pretty exciting for sure. I can imagine some very interesting flows here where I scrape a list of job URLs, and then maybe let's check and see if there's another scraper that enables me to get more information about every job. Just going to type Indeed. So you'll see there's actually multiple scrapers usually for every individual platform, because this is a store and there are developers that are competing to try and come up with the best product or the best scraper essentially that allows you to do that stuff. So yeah, pretty cool. Looks like this one allows you to extract detailed job listings directly from Indeed, which is pretty exciting. This one has a few additional parameters, I think, which is pretty neat. You can plug that puppy in. While that's running, I'm going to head over to the store and maybe look for some other scraper just while I'm here, and I can show you. You can scrape like booking.com stuff, Google Trends stuff, Facebook ads, which is pretty cool. You can even, and this is something that somebody requested a couple of days ago, you can even monitor a website for content changes by screenshotting it. And so what you could do is, let's say you have like 3 or 4 competitors in your niche, you can track a website every single day. And anytime that there's a change to that website, let's say there's a new blog post added or something, the screenshot will be different. And you can receive a quick little email, or you can use this in a flow that every time the website gets updated, you could have a web scraper run, which goes to the website, maybe scrapes the new blog post or something, and then rewrites it and then posts it on your website. Like, the opportunities here are quite frankly ridiculous. And that's why, I'm convinced that these sorts of tools are just real superpowers. They're kind of insane. If you're into coding and stuff, you can kind of look on the back end here. You'll see that, there's a bunch of comments that are being left by the scraper and that sort of thing. Obviously, I don't want to dive too deep into the code or whatnot, so I'm just looking at the tabular data that's sort of output after every actor run. But yeah, you have a real wealth of, potential here with Apify. So I would highly encourage you guys to jump on and give it a go. I don't really use anything except for the store and then the actors unless I'm creating my own flow. I have created a bunch of my own flows. Basically, in order to do so, you have to click Develop New in the top right-hand corner. And then, for the people that have more maybe programming skills or are more like code inclined than the rest of us, I usually use Crawley, Puppeteer, and Chrome. And then I actually need to go out and then, use a template. I always start with a template, and then I actually go and like write my scraper. When you write your scraper, you can actually define like what elements in the page you want to be extracting, where you want to be sending the data to. I've built a number of really interesting ones where, I'll scrape some job listing data source usually. And then with the job scripting data source, I will like look for the company name somewhere on the page. I'll use that company name to fire another scraper, which maybe looks on Indeed or looks on LinkedIn. And then I'll use that in order to like enrich a bunch of emails related to that business to like send cold emails to. Tons of flows that you can build out if you know a little bit of code as well. But yeah, as I mentioned, there's more than enough actors for most people. Aside from the store and aside from the actors page, some other sections that may be of interest to you, I don't really know, are schedules. So if you have an actor, you can schedule them automatically here. I personally don't use this because I usually just schedule them in make.com, which I'll show you how to do in a second. There is like a storage sort of database thing here, which allows you to keep track of all of the outputs from your actors over time. And then there's a proxy over here. I was receiving a couple of questions from people about whether or not, we could scrape with proxies in make.com. I found a couple of ways to use proxies in Make. They're very difficult. So what I usually do is I will just run my scraping requests where I need a proxy through Apify. I'll still trigger it in Make, but I'll do it in Apify. And then I'll use their billing in order to, use a data center residential proxy for my scraping. And this enables me to, scrape essentially undetected and then to revolve the location that I'm scraping from a lot of the time. So I never really get pigeonholed or blocked or anything like that. But okay, I think that's enough of just talking about Apify. Let me show you how to implement it and use it in make.com, because I think that's just as, if not more important. First, I'm just going to call this like Apify testbed. And then what you need to do is, in your new scenario, all you need to do is just write Apify, and you'll see that there are actually a bunch of built-ins here. You can also use Apify via like an API, but usually the built-in ones are more than enough. The two most important triggers are watch actor runs and then watch task runs. I believe a task is like a specific instantiation of an actor, and then an actor is just like more generally. So I only ever use watch actor runs. So what you can do is you could set the schedule in Apify if you wanted to run every day. Then every day that the run is done and it has a bunch of data, then you can just watch that actor run and then get an event. And then now, because you're running it outside of make.com, you still end up with all the data, and then you can use it to like move the next part of your flow forward. Alternatively, what you can do is you can run an actor using make.com. And so that's what I'm going to do here. Once you open it, you need to make a connection. In order to make a connection, all you have to do is just go to this link right over here, console.apify.com/account/integrations. There'll be an API key over here that you can just copy and then paste. So I just did that off screen because, I don't want to show anybody my API key for this. And once you're done with that, all you need to do is just click on this little drop down. Then you now have access to all of the actors that you just connected to from the store. So I could scrape Indeed over here. I could scrape Twitter over here, which I'll do in a second. Web scraper, website content crawler, YouTube comment scraper, YouTube scraper. We're going to use Indeed scraper here, which is quite exciting. And then there are a couple of additional options. There's input JSON, build, timeout, memory. What I'll do is, in order to use this with make.com, you have to find the specific actor. So in my case, I want the Twitter scraper. And then you see how there's a regular button here, and then there's a JSON button. So basically, these instructions that we're providing down here, this is just a user interface that Apify has whipped up for us. But if you look at the actual like code input that's provided to it, it's just a bunch of JSON, which looks like this. So all we need to do in order to make this work is we go over to JSON here, and then we just paste it in. And if you wanted to pull this data from an external data source, for instance, that'd be pretty easy, right? All you do is you would like add, I don't know, a Google Sheets module. Maybe you search rows once a day or something like that. You make this the input. And then over here, where we're feeding in the Twitter bio of the people that we want to scrape, you would just grab it from the Google Sheet module back here. So pretty simple, pretty straightforward stuff. But there are a couple of things that may trip you up if you're unfamiliar with how that works. Now I want my stuff to look pretty, so I'm just going to format this in jsonformatter.org. I'm going to go back here, get a nice list of handles over here. And for the purposes of this, I'm just going to scrape my own Twitter profile, which I believe is just Nick Seraf. Yes, it is. Oops, let's just do that. Now we can specify the build down here, but if you look at this little idea like light bulb icon, it says by default the run uses the build specified in the default run configuration for the actor, which is typically latest. So if you don't include anything, it'll just always use the latest build. This is more of a programming concept than anything else, and you don't really need to worry about it. Just know that I always leave the build blank. I'll also always leave the timeout blank, and then the memory I'll always leave blank. Basically, if you leave it blank, it's just going to use the default run config. Okay, so what you'll do is when you click run once, the actor, it's not like it's running live and just waiting for you. Basically what's happening is when you click run once, it just sends a signal over to Apify and then tells it to run. So in Make, you're just going to receive a thumbs up basically saying, hey, this is now running. But that isn't actually super useful to us if you think about it, because we can't actually do anything with that now. What I'd recommend you do is if you're scheduling it like this, schedule it using Make's whatever interval you want. Maybe you run it every day and you run it at like, 12 p.m. So I think I have to like hard code in here. Yeah. And then what I do is I'd have a separate scenario. And the way that this scenario would work is if I make an example build here, we'll say watch actor runs and then get data. So let's do trigger Apify run over here for our first scenario. This is just going to trigger Apify to run once a day for the specific scraper that we want. And then all we do with the other module is we go to Apify and then we go watch actor runs. We're going to create a webhook here using the connection that we just set up earlier, which in my case was my Apify connection. The actor that we want is that Twitter one. Then we'll say finish Twitter scraper as the webhook name. Going to save that. And now what'll happen is basically if I run this, Anytime that my actor is done running, I will receive a notification in that other window. So this first scenario now, I just triggered the Apify run. So it's now running in the back end. And what this other scenario is doing is just waiting. So if I actually go back to Apify, I can see this run as it's happening live. And so I triggered it in Make, and now it's actually happening in Apify, and we have access to the user interface here. Now I know that it's going to scrape this probably in the next 10 seconds or so, and I just want to show you guys what it looks like on Apify's end. So I'm just going to go back to watch actor runs. There's one additional step that we need to do in order to make this work. Watching actor runs isn't actually enough to get the data and pull it into Make. We need to add a second module called get actor data, or get data set from actor, something like that. And that's basically like when we get the ID of the actor, all we do is we ping the actor again with the get, and then we have access to the whole database. This is just a quirk of Apify's API. Every API is a little bit different with how they work and that sort of deal. So this is just the way that Apify works. They sort of have like a two-step. The first thing that happens is when the actor is done, you receive a notification like this. It says succeeded, but you'll see that there's actually no data here. It just says, we did 2 requests, 2 succeeded, 0 failed. But we can't actually access the, the memory and that sort of stuff. But if you go back down to Apify, you can say get data set items. You can just connect that to the flow. And then if you click on it, you'll see that really the field that matters here is data set ID. And we can actually, for the purposes of this, I'm just going to hard code it. There's a data set ID over here. And I don't actually remember if this data set ID is in the meta options or if we just use this. Okay, I think we just use this. I'm going to give this thing a click. Oh, sorry, there's default data set ID. My bad, that's the one that you use. So just use this default data set ID. Now I just want to hard code this. I don't actually have to want to wait for the actor to run again. So I'm just going to look for default data set ID down here. I'm going to copy and paste that in for now. You can set, your own parameters here. Maybe you only want JSON. Maybe you want it to be CSV. Maybe you're outputting it in HTML for whatever reason. But what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to run this. And you'll see that we've now received basically just a list of all of those posts. And the get a dataset module has a built-in iterator. And so the outputs are in bundle form. So there's like one bundle per post, essentially, at least for the Twitter one. So it's pretty exciting because now we have all of this data in make.com. And if you think about it, what we can do now is, let's say I want to create that parasite campaign. I can go to OpenAI, have a little completion endpoint here, plug that puppy in. And then I can go to model, I'll do GPT-4 Turbo. I'll do a system prompt first. I'll say, you're a helpful, intelligent writing assistant. Then I'll say, this is sort of cheeky. This is like a parasite campaign. So, morally speaking, ethically speaking, do with this what you will. I'm not doing this because I want everybody to run parasite campaigns because I think they're amazing or anything. I'm just showing you guys how to do it because this is a very common request that people are either willing to spend money for, or it's just something that you can use to either keep an eye on competitors or, improve your own business standing. So obviously use this sort of thing with caution. Don't go creating parasites for literally everybody. But what I'll do is I'm going to do a system prompt, which is going to define what the model is, how it self-identifies. Then I'm going to do a user prompt where I give it instructions. So I'm going to say, hey, I want you to do this. And then the next step is just like a user prompt and then an assistant prompt and then a user prompt and then an assistant prompt. And these are just examples of the input and the output that I want from the model before I finally get it to do an output on real live data. So what I'm going to say is, you are a content, spinner. Your job is to take a post from Twitter and rewrite it in a way that encapsulates the original theme in different words. Output in JSON. Now I'm going to give it a bunch of examples. I'll go user, then I'll go assistant, then I'll do user, and I'm actually just going to do one. That's it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go on my own Twitter here. Let's pop in. Let's see some posts that I myself wrote. I think if I go to highlights, it's probably all stuff that I wrote. Yeah, so it's just me bragging about my YouTube. That's pretty funny. This is a good one. I made $210,000 in the last 12 months on Upwork, worked 2 to 3 hours per day, spent a big chunk of the year traveling. Would there be interest in a long thread detailing how I did it? Awesome. So I'm just going to paste this in as the post. And the example is going to be, over the last 12 months, I made $210,000 on, let's use a different word than made, because made is here. I profited $210,000 on Upwork. No, that's not really super accurate. Made is different than profit, and they have like a revenue share. Generated? That sounds kind of tacky. Okay, whatever. Let's do with minimal work and a travel heavy lifestyle. Want to learn how? Yeah, maybe just want to learn how. That looks good. Okay, great. And now I'm going to, I actually don't even need to output in JSON. I can just grab the text directly as is. Now I'm just going to feed in the actual text from the flow. That'll be full text. Max token is going to be 496. Let's just do that. And then let's add a Sheets module. So I'm just going to do like content calendar, or maybe, I don't know, parasite Twitter campaign. I'm just going to share this with the account that I know has access to this. Then I'll go back to here, and then I'll add a Google Sheet. And what I'm going to do is every time that we generate a new one, we're just going to add a row to the sheet. Simple, easy, beautiful, cover girl. Now we're going to select the spreadsheet ID. It's probably in shared with me now that I think about it. Let's see. Oh boy, that icon's taking its sweet ass time. Yeah, shared with me. There you go. Okay, parasite Twitter campaign. And then what we have to do is feed in the sheet name, which is going to be sheet 1. Table contains headers. Oh, yeah, fuck, I guess we need some headers. Let's just do post copy. This is going to be the laziest Google Sheets build I've ever done. There you go. And then what I'm going to do is feed the result in. Let's do source post, and then we'll do post copy. If I go back here, I'm going to refresh this again. Now I'm going to have access to source post in A, then I'll have post copy in B. The source post is going to be full text from here. Post copy is going to be here. So we're going to be able to see the rephrased thing, and then we're also going to be able to see the other. And let me just make sure everything else looks good. Full text. There may be some issues here because some of the comments that are being scraped on the Twitter are people that aren't me. So it has like an @ here. So this is like me responding to somebody probably. But that's okay. Yeah, we could just, okay, let's do this. Just so that we don't actually go through the process of rewriting posts that suck. If the text contains, so I'm just going to say contains case insensitive, and if it contains an @. So if full text contains an @, then this is a reply. And then if it's a reply, sorry, we want doesn't contain, my bad. We'll say not reply. Okay. So the logic is going to be as follows. We're going to run the Apify actor over here, which I just ran. And then I'm going to run this just so, when it finally finishes scraping, we're going to get the results. But basically, when it finishes scraping, we're going to get this module to run. I think there's a very loud motorcycle outside, so hopefully you guys can hear me all right. Then next, we're going to reping Apify with the dataset ID to scrape the data. Once we have the data, it'll be a list of all of the posts essentially from that person's Twitter profile that are relevant. We're then going to pass it through a filter called not reply. This is going to look for the presence of an @ symbol, and that @ symbol is just a quick little hack I'm going to use to filter out any replies. And then after this, we're going to send it over to ChatGPT or GPT-4. That's going to rewrite the post for us. And then after this, we're going to go into Google Sheets. We're going to add a new row that includes the source post and then also includes the rewritten version. So I'll be real. I'm not expecting any Nobel freaking prizes here. But yeah, I think that there's probably a fair amount that you can do with something like this. So let me expand this and let's see what's going on. I'm going to make this a little bit shorter here because this is happening pretty fast. And then I'm also going to unbold this. And then because I'm fancy, I'm going to use the Inter font. Looks like the original is kind of a copycat. I'm using the same emojis, which kind of sucks. Let's check out the second one. Program is one of those weird careers that gets exponentially easier. Your first job is extremely difficult to acquire, but every job after that pays you more for less work. When you're 10 years in, it's not uncommon to juggle a dozen or more offers while having a job. This one's programming is an unusual career when things get noticeably easier over time. Landing the first job can be tough, but subsequent positions often come with better pay for better hours. About a decade, and it's not rare to handle multiple job offers simultaneously, even while employed. This one's good. To be fair, television shows are interesting primarily because the characters don't have their lives together. Honestly, TV shows are captivating largely because the characters are still figuring out their lives. I think that is a pretty clear illustration that, we're basically saying the same thing, we're just doing it in different words. If I could go back in time and change the prompt here, I would. I think using the term spinning is really hurting us. Yeah, I think that when I say the word spinner, it like sort of pattern matches for just changing a couple of words as opposed to the meaning. Rewrite each message in a way that encapsulates the original theme, but uses different words. And let's change this a little further. This required very minimal work. Got to do a bunch of fun stuff like travel, enjoy my life, etc. I'm curious as to whether anyone wants a detailed breakdown of how I did it. Let's do that. That should be sufficient. If we had another example here, it'd probably be better, but is what it is. Okay, I'm going to run this here, and then I'm actually just going to go through and then delete this because I just want to have it output with better data. And then sometimes in Make, you have to do sort of an annoying hack with Google Sheets where you just have to delete all of the rows. So I just right-click the rows here, and then I click delete. This doesn't actually do anything visibly to change the way that this is laid out because I'm deleting row 2 to 16, but then 17 to 32 or whatever is just bumping down to 2 to 16. But I find that sometimes there's like an index stored or maybe it's cached or something. So if I don't do that, sometimes the results will start populating here. And I just rather they start populating immediately under source post up at the top. But I just made a quick little change here to the prompt because I wasn't very satisfied with the quality of that prompt. I think we needed to change it a little bit more. And ideally what we'd actually do is like add 3 or 4 examples as opposed to just one, but I was trying to be a little cheeky and short on time. So let's see what we got here. Yeah, so this is a good one. Television shows are interesting primarily, blah, blah, blah. Honestly, TV shows are captivating mostly because their characters are a mess. It always seemed weird to me, and the majority of conversations never asked a single question. When I talk to people, I ask them tons of questions. Yeah. So this is a pretty cut and dry Parasite campaign here. I think that there's probably a lot that he could do to improve this. You might be able to take the post copy of the second thing and feed it back in AI, or maybe you could just like increase the temperature or add a few more examples of just how intensely you want to change the original meaning. But I think it's clear at this point that this is the stem that you could use to build out more or less any flow of your own that is high performing. And we did it all using Apify, which is a platform that I think a lot of people that are watching this video had no idea existed before 20 or 30 minutes ago. So quite exciting. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to save these blueprints just so you guys can use them on your own. Obviously, you're going to have to hook up your own Apify actors, and if you're not doing a Twitter Parasite SEO campaign, you're going to have to, or Parasite social media campaign, you're going to have to change the prompt and that sort of deal. But I think this is probably sufficient enough to at least get you guys started. And the great news about Apify is you can get very far with just the $5 monthly budget that is provided to you, along with the default scrapers. You don't really need to know a ton of programming in order to do this. Awesome. Thanks so much for watching this video, guys. I had a lot of fun putting it together. If you guys have any requests for similar videos, just drop a comment down below with what you'd like to see. I sourced tons of my videos from just comments that were left on random clips that I recorded 2.5 months ago. But I'm working my way down the list now, and it's really helping me become more consistent and not have to think too much about what to post, but I can actually just jump in and then create something of value to y'all. Otherwise, please like, subscribe, do all that fun YouTube stuff. I'll catch you on the next video. Thanks.